Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you could join me for this journey. And now, let's begin. Frank Dawson ran his hand along the arm of the oak chair, feeling for any missed rough spots. Sandpaper whispered over the wood grain, a sound familiar to him for 42 years, just like the smell of sawdust and the muted hum of the radio playing Merle Haggard. A Tuesday evening, late January, peace and quiet. Just how he liked it. Linda had kissed his cheek on her way out, heading to Sarah's in Millbrook, be back on Thursday, probably. A trail of her perfume lingered, something new, sweeter than usual. He noticed, but didn't think much of it. The phone rang at 11:47 p.m., an unknown number. "Mr. Dawson, this is Jimmy from the Pineview Motel. Your wife's car won't start. She asked if you could come get her." Frank froze in place, the kitchen light sharp in his eyes. The Pineview Motel was 40 miles west. Sarah lived 2 hours east, in Millbrook. He grabbed his truck keys, his hand already trembling. Snow started falling just past the county line. Frank turned on the wipers, watching them beat a rhythm against the windshield. Thump, thump, thump. His thoughts circled the same point. Millbrook to the east, the motel to the west. Maybe she got lost. Maybe the roads were bad and she pulled over. Maybe there was a simple explanation. The Pineview Motel sat off Highway 52, a low, dreary building with a neon sign flickering pink and blue. Frank pulled into the parking lot, snow already layering on the hood. Linda's Honda was parked in front of room 12. He sat for a minute, the engine running, the heater blowing. Told himself he was being a fool. Told himself to trust 43 years of marriage. And then he saw her. She stood in the parking lot, wrapped tightly in her coat, and wouldn't meet his eyes as he got out of the truck. The fluorescent light from the motel office made her face look gray. "The car won't start," she said, her voice too high, too rushed. "The battery's dead, I think." Frank looked past her to room 12. The curtain twitched in the gap. He saw a man's silhouette pulling on a shirt. His heart sank. "Who is that?" Linda followed his gaze, then quickly looked away. "I met an old friend. The roads got dangerous, so we got a room to wait it out." The words hung in the air, pathetic and obvious. Behind them, the motel office door opened. A guy in his 20s leaned against the doorframe, chewing beef jerky and smirking. "Nervous night, huh?" He nodded toward room 12. Frank's hands clenched into fists, but he said nothing. Just opened the passenger door of his truck. "Get in." Linda hesitated, threw a glance back at room 12. The curtain was now closed. "Linda, get in the truck." She climbed in, her hands shaking as she buckled the seatbelt. Frank got behind the wheel, pulled out. The whole parking lot smelled of cheap pine air freshener and exhaust. They drove in silence. The snow was getting heavier. Frank had to clear the windshield twice, leaning forward to see the road. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The cab was filled with Linda's perfume. Too sweet. Something expensive she'd never worn before. She tried to speak once. "Frank, He didn't answer. Just kept driving. The wipers beat their rhythm. The heater blew hot air that did nothing for the cold in his chest. The 40 miles felt like 400. When they pulled into their driveway, Linda quickly got out and hurried towards the house. Frank sat in the truck with the engine running, watching the snow cover the windshield. Each snowflake caught the light from the porch before melting. He had built this house, raised the frame, run the electricity, installed the plumbing 41 years ago with his own hands and a loan from the credit union. He still remembered the smell of fresh lumber, how Linda had cried when he carried her over the threshold. An old friend, as if he were an idiot. He turned off the engine, listened to it tick as it cooled. His wedding ring reflected the dashboard light-scratched gold, thinned with time. When he finally went inside, Linda was standing at the kitchen sink, her back to him, her shoulders shaking. "Frank, please, we need to talk." He walked past her into the bedroom, closed the door without replying. In the dark, he sat on the edge of the bed they had shared for 43 years. His hands were still shaking. He pressed them palm down on his knees, forcing them to stop. From the kitchen came the sound of running water, the coffee maker turning on, Linda moving back and forth, creating noise as if everything was fine. He looked at the closed door. Tomorrow she would have an explanation. Tomorrow she would tell him something that made sense, something he could believe. Tomorrow, maybe. His hands would stop shaking. But today he just sat in the dark, listening to his wife pretend nothing had happened, and wondering when exactly his life had turned into a lie. Thursday morning came with a pale winter light through the kitchen window. Frank woke to the smell of pancakes. Linda stood at the stove with a spatula, her back tense. When she turned, her eyes were red and swollen. Mascara ran in dark streams down her cheeks. "Burned the first batch," she said in a quiet voice. She set a plate in front of him. The edges of the pancakes were charred. Frank picked up his fork, said nothing. She sat across from him, cradling a mug of coffee as if she were freezing. "Frank," her voice trembled. "It was a mistake. One stupid, terrible mistake." He cut into a pancake. It tasted like ash and too much syrup. "I met Derek at Country Line dancing classes. You remember? I told you last year. He was kind to me. Made me laugh." She was crying now, real tears. Her hands were shaking. "The roads were bad on Wednesday, and we stopped for coffee. And one thing led to another. And I swear to God, Frank, it meant nothing." Frank put down his fork, looked at her directly for the first time since the motel. She reached across the table, grabbed his hand. Her fingers were icy. "I'll end it today. Right now, I'll call him and end it. We can see a counselor. Work on us. Please, Frank. 43 years they can't just be over." Images flashed before his eyes. Their wedding. Her in a simple white dress from J.C. Penney. Amy's birth. Linda, exhausted and beautiful, holding our daughter. This house, room by room, built by his hands while she painted walls and hung curtains. 43 years. People make mistakes. People are weak. Maybe forgiveness is the stronger choice. He nodded slowly. "We'll work on it." Linda's face crumpled with relief. She came around the table, hugged him from behind, pressed her face into his shoulder. "Thank the Lord. Thank you. I love you. I'm so sorry." Her warmth felt real. Or maybe he just wanted it to be. On Friday, Linda was different. Bubbly, humming off-key as she cleaned the house. She made his favorite dinner. Pot roast with carrots and potatoes. Suggested they watch an old movie, the kind they used to watch when Amy was little. But her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Every time she'd glance at it, then move to another room to check it. "Work stuff," she'd say when she came back. Frank wanted to believe her. Saturday morning, she announced she was going to the grocery store. "Don't need anything special?" she asked, too cheerfully, pulling on her coat too fast. "We have plenty," Frank said. "Well, I'll just pick up a few things." She was out the door before he could reply. Frank sat at the kitchen table, the coffee in his mug growing cold. Something was wrong. Everything was wrong. He went to his desk in the corner of the living room, started sorting through papers, bills, receipts, the usual clutter. That's when he noticed it, a gap in the filing cabinet where the bank statements should be. His heart beat faster. He checked the drawer again. The January statement was there, December, November, but everything from last summer was missing. Frank opened their shared laptop, his hands trembling. He was going to look for marriage counselors, book an appointment, prove to himself he was trying. The screen lit up. Linda's email was still open. She must have forgotten to log out. The very last email was at the top of the inbox. Sent this morning at 7:43 a.m. Subject: 2 more weeks, baby. From Derek Howell, Frank's hand hovered over the touchpad. He clicked. Baby, he bought it. Give me 2 more weeks to transfer the rest of the money, and we're free. He's too old and too proud to fight. The counselor idea is genius. It buys us time. Love you, D. The kitchen swam. Frank gripped the edge of the table. He scrolled down. Dozens more emails. Hundreds, possibly. Over the last 18 months. Subject lines jumped out. Our future. The plan. Can't wait to wake up next to you when we're finally free. His finger moved on its own. Clicking. Opening. Reading. He doesn't get me. Never has. It's like living with furniture. Useful. But you don't notice it. That was from Linda 6 months ago. Derek's reply. You deserve better, baby. A real life with me. Another from 3 months ago. Transferred another 1,400 today. He doesn't even check the statements, just signs whatever I put in front of him. 2 more months, and we'll have enough for the down payment on the cottage. Frank's vision blurred. Tears, rage, shock. He didn't know. He clicked on an email from 2 weeks ago. I can't stand his smell. Motor oil and Old Spice. Derek, I'm 65. If I don't do this now, I'll die in this house with a man who doesn't even see me. Derek, 2 more weeks. Move the cash, and we walk. He'll be too proud to fight. Old men like him just give up. Frank closed the laptop, sat in the dark living room, staring at his hands. Rough, scarred, stained with 42 years of grease and hard labor. Hands that had built this house, raised a daughter, fixed every car in this town for a fair price. Furniture. The clock on the wall ticked. The refrigerator hummed. A car drove by outside. Linda's car pulled into the driveway at 3:15 a.m. Frank heard her key in the lock, heard her steps in the kitchen. The light clicked on. Frank, why are you up? You scared me. He was still sitting at the table, the closed laptop in front of him, the lights off. How was the grocery run? His voice was flat, empty. She hesitated, a second too long. Fine. They didn't have the bread you like, so 3 hours for groceries? I ran into Patty. We were talking. Frank slowly stood up, looked at her directly. I know, Linda. Her face went white. Know what? Everything. Linda's face cycled through emotions. Shock, fear, anger, calculation. It settled on defiance. You went through my private email. That's illegal, Frank. That's a violation. It's our laptop, our shared account. His voice was still even. Dead. You want to talk about violations? She changed tactics, tears springing to her eyes. I was going to tell you. I swear, I was ending it. That email. He won't leave me alone. I told him it was over, but he keeps. Enough. The word hung between them. Frank sat back down at the table, opened the laptop. The screen glowed blue in the dark living room. You want to explain? Fine. Let's go through them together. Frank, don't. He clicked on the oldest email, 18 months old. Read it aloud. Met the most amazing man today at line dancing, Derek. He made me feel young again, like I mattered. Linda's face twisted, but he continued. The next email. We had coffee today. He asked about my life. Actually asked, Frank, when was the last time you asked me anything? Another. Derek says I'm beautiful. When was the last time you said that? Frank's voice remained flat, mechanical. Click. Read. Click. Read. We kissed today. I know I shouldn't have, but God, Frank, I felt alive. He wants to build a life with me. A real life, adventures, travel, not just sitting in front of the TV waiting to die. Linda was crying now, but Frank didn't stop. 6 months ago, transferred $800 from the savings today. Derek and I are planning a trip. Frank never checks the statements anyway. 5 months ago, it's like living with furniture. Useful, but you don't notice it. You just exist next to it. Frank's voice wavered on that one. He paused, swallowed, kept reading. Derek found a cottage near the state park. Perfect for weekends. We're going to rent it. Our place. Away from this dead town and my dead marriage. 3 months ago, transferred another $2,400. The cottage needs furniture. Real furniture. None of the junk Frank builds in his workshop. That one burned. Everything in this house. The kitchen table, the bed frame, the bookshelves he'd built with his own hands. Junk. Linda reached for the laptop. Please, stop. I didn't mean it. He pulled it away from her, kept clicking. I'm 65, Derek. If I don't leave now, I'll die in this house with a man who smells like motor oil and doesn't even see me. The counselor idea is brilliant. It will keep him placated while we finish moving the money. He's too dumb to suspect anything. Frank closed the laptop, sat in the dark, staring into nothing. Linda sank to her knees beside his chair. I was confused. I was scared of getting old, dying, never feeling. How much? What? How much did you steal? She flinched. I didn't steal. It's our money. The joint account. How much, Linda? Silence. Frank stood, went to the filing cabinet, pulled out the bank statements she hadn't hidden. January, December, November. Got the calculator from the drawer. Linda watched, pale, as he went through every statement, highlighting withdrawals, adding them up. 2,800, 2,200, 1,500, 2,400. Small enough not to raise flags, large enough to add up. The calculator read 47,200. Frank set it down neatly. 47,000 over 18 months. Linda's voice became small. We were going to pay you back. You mean, I was going to. You and Derek. Your cottage, your future, with my money. She stood, tried to touch his arm. He stepped back. Where is it? What did you do with 47,000? The cottage rental, 22,000. Furniture? And the furniture you bought with the man you're cheating with. With the money I earned, busting my knuckles on frozen engines for 42 years. His voice was rising now, the flatness cracking. Money I was saving for our retirement, for Amy's inheritance when we're gone. He stopped, his chest heaving. You called me furniture. I didn't mean it. I was angry. I was. You stole from me, lied to my face every day for 1.5 years, planned your escape while I slept next to you. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. Who are you? Linda's face hardened. I'm the one who got tired of being invisible, tired of being taken for granted. You think you're some saint? Always at work, come home smelling like the garage, fall asleep in front of the TV every night. So that's what I deserved. Theft and betrayal. You ignored me for years. I built you a house. Frank's voice broke. I worked 6 days a week so you could stay home with Amy. Fixed every rattling car in this county so we could save for retirement. Never cheated. Never lied. Never. He stopped. I was boring. That's my crime. I was boring, and I smelled like motor oil. Frank, get out. What? Get out of my sight. Sleep in Amy's old room. I don't care. Just... He turned away. I can't look at you. Linda stood, her mouth opening and closing. Finally, she walked down the hall, a door closed. Frank sat at the kitchen table. 4:17 a.m. The house was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator. He put his head in his hands. 43 years to hell. Just to hell. His phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. Stay away from Linda. She's mine now. Move on, old man. Frank stared at it. Didn't reply. Turned off his phone. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten. Dawn was coming, whether he wanted it or not. Sunday morning at 9 Albo, the church bells rang. Frank didn't go. He sat on the porch in the 2-degree cold. No coat. Smoking a cigarette Harold had given him months ago. His first cigarette in 20 years. It burned his throat, made him cough, but he didn't care. Inside, Linda moved back and forth, humming, actually humming, doing laundry as if it were any ordinary Sunday. The disconnect from reality was driving him insane. Harold appeared at the fence, a kitchen towel over his shoulder. He glanced at Frank, put the towel down, and crossed the property line without asking. Sat in the other porch chair. They were silent for 10 minutes, just sitting, the wind rattling the bare branches, meltwater dripping from the roof. Finally, Harold pulled out a pack of Marlboro Reds, lit one, offered the pack to Frank. Frank took another cigarette, lit it with trembling hands. "She was cheating," Frank said, his voice. "Stole 47 grand. Harold's eyebrows went up, but he said nothing. A year and a half right under my nose. I'm either stupid or blind." "Neither," Harold said. "You trusted her. That's not a weakness." Frank's laugh was bitter. "Feels like weakness." They smoked in silence. From inside, through the window, came Linda's off-key humming. "Stand by your man." Frank wanted to scream. "You gonna let her finish you off?" Harold asked quietly. "Or you gonna do something about it?" Frank didn't answer. Harold stood up. "Got a lawyer's card inside. A good one. Helped my nephew when his wife tried to clean him out." He paused. "You want it?" Frank nodded slowly. "Call her Monday morning," Harold said. "Don't tell Linda. Don't warn anybody. Just protect yourself." He squeezed Frank's shoulder. "You built this house, Frank. Your name's on the deed. Your money in that account. She doesn't get to steal your life and call you furniture." He crossed back over the fence. Frank sat alone, the cigarette burning down to his fingers. Inside, Linda sang. Outside, Frank made a decision. Monday morning, 7:15. Frank dialed the number Harold had written on a napkin. 3 rings. "Cruz Associates, Janet speaking." Frank's throat tightened. He swallowed. Tried again. "Ma'am, I need help. My wife." "She." The words stuck. "Take your time," Janet said. Her voice was firm but kind. "Just tell me what happened." Frank told her everything. The motel, the emails, the money. His voice cracked twice, but he got through it. Janet listened, not interrupting. He could hear her pen scratching on paper. When he finished, there was a pause. "Mr. Dawson, this is fraud. Dissipation of assets. In Virginia, fault does impact the division of property when there's financial misconduct." Another pause. "I can help you, but we need to move quickly and quietly. Don't tell her you've hired an attorney. Can you do that?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Come to my office at 2 p.m. Bring all the bank statements you can find, all credit card bills, anything with both your names on it. I'll bring them. And Mr. Dawson, you are not stupid. You are not blind. You trusted someone you loved. That's called being human." Frank's eyes stung. "Thank you." He hung up, looked at the clock. 7 hours until the meeting. Linda was still asleep, or pretending to be. Frank went to the filing cabinet, pulled out every document he could find. Bank statements, credit card bills, the mortgage papers from 41 years ago. Paid off 15 years early because he took all the overtime he could. He spread them on the kitchen table, started going through them methodically, calculator in hand. The withdrawals jumped out now that he knew what to look for. August, 18 months ago, 800, household expenses. September, 2,200, personal. October, 1,500. Every withdrawal on a Thursday, Linda's errand day. He checked the calendar on the wall. Every Thursday she said she was visiting her sister, or shopping, or had book club. Lies. All lies. The calculator read 12,400, 21,600, 36,800, 47,200. Frank's hands were steady now. The rage burned cold, not hot. Methodical. Focused. He opened the filing cabinet again, looking for the property tax documents. He reviewed them every year, same as he changed the oil in his truck. Maintenance. One document caught his eye. A lease agreement. He didn't remember seeing it before. Twin Pines Fishing Cottage. Lease term, 18 months. Co-tenants, Linda Dawson, Derek Howell. Paid in full, $22,000. Frank stared at it. They had rented a cottage with his money, their love nest. He opened the laptop, found the address, found the rental listing, photos loaded, a stone fireplace, a king-size bed with a rustic headboard, a leather sofa, a full kitchen. A perfect getaway for a couple, a romantic escape, secluded and private. They had furnished it, planned a whole life there on his retirement money. A knock on the back door made him look up. Harold stood on the threshold with mugs of coffee in his hands, had seen Frank through the window, surrounded by papers. He entered without an invitation, set a mug in front of Frank, looked at the lease agreement. Lord, Frank, 22 grand for a cottage, another 12 for furniture. Judging by these receipts, Frank's voice was level. 8,000 in cash I can't trace. Probably date money. Took her to nice restaurants while I ate leftovers alone. Harold pulled up a chair, sat, looked over some of the documents. You saving all this, every page? Taking it to the lawyer this afternoon. Good. Harold sipped his coffee. You told Linda yet? No, she doesn't know I'm doing this. Even better. They sat in silence. The clock on the wall ticked. Outside, meltwater dripped from the gutter. My wife had an affair, Harold said quietly. Back in '94. Emotional, not physical. But it near killed me. Found the letters. It was early internet. Remember? When you had to dial up. Frank looked at him. She was planning to leave. Had it all figured out. And then this. Guy. He backed off, found someone younger. Harold's jaw tightened. She came back to me because she had nowhere else to go, and I was so grateful she stayed. I pretended it never happened. Did it work? For a while, then the cancer came. Harold's voice wavered. We had 5 good years after that, really good. But Frank, I spent those 5 years wondering if she stayed out of love or because she had no choice. Those doubts poisoned everything. He looked Frank straight in the eye. Don't be me. Don't take her back, because it's easier than being alone. Your dignity is worth more than comfort. I'm 68, Harold. Who starts over at 68? Someone who's got 20 good years left and doesn't want to spend them hearing himself called furniture. The back door opened. Linda stood in the doorway in her robe, her eyes darting from Frank to Harold, to the papers scattered on the table. What's going on? Harold stood up. Just brought some coffee. See you later, Frank. He went out the back door. Linda moved closer, looking at the papers. Her face went white. Frank, what are you doing with all this? Getting things in order. Why? He looked up at her. Really looked at her. Wondered when she had stopped being his wife and become a stranger. Because I'm tired of pretending I don't notice. Her mouth opened, closed. She pulled her robe tighter. Notice what? Frank picked up the cottage lease agreement, held it up for her to see. Twin Pines Fishing Cottage. You and Derek. 22,000. My money. The color drained completely from her face. I can explain. No, he stood. You can't. There's no explanation that makes this right. Frank, please. I have a meeting at 2. You need to be gone when I get back. What? You can't just get out of my house. This is my house too. My name is on the deed. I built it and I'm done. His voice was quiet, but it cut like a blade. Pack your things. Go to your cottage. Go to Derek. I don't care. Just get out. Linda's face twisted with rage. You'll regret this, you old man. You'll be alone, miserable, and you'll realize too late that I was the best thing you ever had. Frank picked up his keys, walked past her to the door. I am alone, he said. Have been for the last year and a half. I just didn't know it yet. He left her standing in the kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal. Drove to Janet's office an hour early, sat in the parking lot, hands on the wheel, and finally let himself cry. Saturday morning was cold and clear. Frank woke at 5 a.m., as always. Couldn't sleep past dawn if he tried. The house felt different, more silent. Not the silence of waiting for someone to come home. The silence of being alone. He made coffee, sat at the kitchen table he'd built 30 years ago, ran his hand over the wood grain. His phone vibrated. Janet. Sharon Howell wants to meet you. Says, "Thank you for exposing Derek before he vanished with everything." "Can I give her your number?" Frank replied, "Yes." Soon, another message came from an unknown number. "Mr. Dawson, this is Sharon Howell. I don't know how to thank you. Derek cleaned out our account. $83,000. I had no idea until your lawyer called. He would have disappeared with everything if not for you. I filed yesterday. Criminal fraud. He's finished." Frank stared at the message, typed, "I'm sorry you're going through this." "Don't be. You did me a favor. 20 years married to a con man. Better to know now than keep living a lie. I hope you find peace, Mr. Dawson." He set the phone down. 2 marriages destroyed by the same person. Derek would likely face trial, but it wouldn't fix what was broken. Harold came over at 9 a.m., didn't knock, just came in the back door with a toolbox. "Thought you might want company. Some hinges need replacing." They worked in comfortable silence. Frank held the door while Harold replaced a squeaky hinge on the pantry door. Small repairs, ordinary life. "The town's talking," Harold said, holding a screwdriver in his teeth. "Figured they would." "Split down the middle? Half think Linda's a monster, half think you're a fool for not forgiving her." He put the screwdriver away. "Nobody thinks you're wrong. They just disagree on what comes next." "What do you think comes next?" Harold tested the door. It swung smoothly. The squeak was gone. "I think you keep living, day by day, until the days stop hurting." A car pulled into the driveway. Frank looked out the window. Amy's Honda with Virginia plates. His heart leapt, for the first time in many days. He opened the door quickly, before she could knock. "Hey, Dad. Hey, sweetheart." They stood awkwardly, all the distance of the last week between them. Then Amy dropped her small suitcase and stepped forward, hugged him tight. "I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have. You're here now. That's what matters." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I read the letters, the ones you wrote Mom before you got married. Dad, they were so beautiful. That was a long time ago. You wrote her that she made you believe in forever, that you'd build her a life worth living." Amy's voice trembled. "You kept your promise. She broke it." Frank's throat tightened. Harold appeared from the kitchen. "I'll leave you two alone." On his way out, he squeezed Frank's shoulder. "Good to see you, Amy." "You too, Mr. Simmons." When Harold was gone, Amy sat at the kitchen table. Frank poured her coffee. "Mom called me 17 times yesterday," Amy said. "Said you set her up, turned the town against her. That Derek was just a friend, and you blew it all out of proportion. Did you believe her?" "No. Because I drove to the house to get my old school yearbooks from the attic. She wasn't home, and I looked around." Amy took out her phone, showed him photos. "I found bank statements in her closet, withdrawals highlighted in marker. I found printed emails from Derek, copies probably, where they were planning their new life, talking about you like you were an emptiness." She put the phone down. "And then I found your letters in a shoebox, and I realized she'd kept them all these years. She kept the letters from a man who loved her enough to promise forever, and traded it for what? For a guy with a lifted truck?" Frank didn't answer. "I called her, asked her straight out. 'Did you cheat? Did you steal money?' You know what she said." "What?" "She said, 'I deserve to be happy.' Like that justified everything." Amy wiped her eyes. "I told her I needed space, that I'd call when I was ready. She started crying, saying I was choosing you over her. You don't have to choose." "Yes, I do. Because one of you lied to me and the other didn't. One of you tried to poison me against the other, and the other stayed silent and let me figure it out for myself." She looked at him. "I'm sorry I doubted you, Dad. I'm sorry I believed her without asking for your side. You're here now. That's enough." They sat in silence, drinking coffee as the morning light filled the kitchen. "Can I stay for a few days?" Amy asked. "I took time off. I just want to be here, help you sort through things." "You can stay as long as you want." She smiled, a weak, sad smile. "You know what I want to do." "What?" "Learn woodworking. You always offered to teach me, and I always said I was too busy." She looked at him. "I'm not so busy now." Frank felt something unclench in his chest, something that had been tight for the last 2 weeks. "The workshop's open whenever you're ready." "Good." The week passed in its own rhythm. Frank and Amy worked in the workshop in the mornings. He taught her to sand with the grain, measure twice and cut once, to trust the wood to tell you what it needed. Together they made a cutting board, walnut and maple, alternating stripes, finished with oil. When they were done, Amy held it up to the light, running her fingers over the smooth surface. And then she cried. "I wasted so much time," she said. "Being busy, being distant, believing Mom's version of you instead of knowing you myself. You're here now. That's what matters. But I missed years, Dad. Years of this. Of you." Frank hugged her. "We have time now. That's what matters." Harold came over almost every evening. The three of them sat on the porch, talking about unimportant things. Amy asked Harold about his late wife. Harold asked Amy about her job, her life. It felt like a family. Not the one Frank had lost. A different one. Smaller, but real. Thursday evening, Amy's phone rang. She looked at the screen and declined the call. "Mom," Frank asked. "Yeah, 17th time today. Will you talk to her?" "In time, when I'm ready." Amy set the phone down. "She's living with Aunt Sarah. Derek dumped her, blamed her for everything, said she ruined his life." Frank felt nothing. No sympathy, no triumph, just a detached sadness for the woman Linda had become. "She made her choices," Amy said quietly. "Now she gets to live with them." On Friday, Janet called with news. "The divorce will be final in about 4 months, barring objections. We recovered $28,000 of the stolen funds. Derek's wife's attorney worked with us. The rest is gone, but it's something. Thank you, Janet. You did good work. You protected yourself. That takes strength." When he hung up, Amy was watching him from the doorway. "You okay?" "Yeah, I think I am." That night, Frank sat alone in his workshop, running his hand over the rocking chair he was custom making for a young couple expecting their first child. He'd stopped working on it 2 weeks ago when his world collapsed. Now he picked up the sandpaper and went back to work. The wood was strong, the joints precise. The chair would hold weight, bear years, become an heirloom, just like him. Battered, maybe. Scarred, definitely. But still standing, still building, still here. 3 months later. April arrived, soft and uncertain. Frank stood in his workshop, sanding the final arm of the rocking chair. The cherry wood was smooth under his palm, the order he'd started in January, when his life still made sense. It was April now, and nothing made the same sense, but he was finishing it anyway. The radio played softly, the same station, the same songs, but they sounded different now, as if he were hearing them for the first time. Outside, crocuses pushed through the flower bed Linda had planted 5 years ago. Purple, stubborn, refusing to give up. Life insisting on itself. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks ago. Janet called with the news on a Tuesday. Under the settlement, Frank got the house. His retirement account remained intact. $28,000 in restitution, what had been recovered from Derek's accounts before he squandered it. Linda lived in a rented apartment across town, working part-time at the library. They did not speak. The town knew everything now. No more secrets. Some people nodded to her in church. Most did not. Derek was awaiting trial. Sharon had taken everything in her own divorce. His business had collapsed. Rumor was he'd aged 10 years in 3 months. Frank felt no satisfaction from it, just a weary acceptance that some people build their own hell. A text from Amy lit up his phone. "Finished the bookshelf. Sending pics. Thanks for teaching me, Dad. Love you." 3 photos came through. A simple bookshelf. A walnut stain, neat joints. A beginner's work, but sturdy. Real. She'd gone back to Virginia 2 weeks ago, but called every Sunday. Visited once a month. The distance felt different now. Miles instead of walls. The sound of Harold's footsteps on the gravel path. He appeared in the workshop doorway with 2 mugs of coffee. "Thought you might need a break." They went out on the porch, sat in the rocking chairs Frank had made 20 years ago. Steam rose from the mugs into the cool morning air. "Chair looks good," Harold said. "Should be ready by Wednesday. The baby's due in May." "New lives coming." Harold sipped his coffee. "Seems right." A car drove by. Not Linda's, not Derek's, just a neighbor's. The birds were loud this morning. Spring was noisy, asserting its rights. "You going to that church supper next week?" Harold asked, casually, but not quite. "Thinking about it. Mary Wilson asked about you at the post office yesterday. Said she hopes you're doing well." Frank had rebuilt Mary's back steps 2 weeks ago. She'd brought him lemonade, fresh squeezed, too much sugar, a sprig of mint. They'd sat on her porch for an hour, talking about nothing much. Grandchildren, gardening, the weather. She'd mentioned her husband died 5 years ago. A heart attack, quick. Frank said he was sorry. She said, "Thank you," and asked if he wanted more lemonade. He wasn't ready for anything. Might never be. But the conversation didn't scare him. "She makes a good lemon bar," Harold said. "Just so you know, I've heard." They finished their coffee in a comfortable silence, the kind born of shared hardship, of having witnessed each other's lowest points and showing up anyway. The anniversary of Harold's wife's death had been last month. Frank had driven him to the cemetery, sat in the truck, while Harold visited the headstone. Didn't ask questions when Harold came back with red-rimmed eyes. That's what friends do. They show up. They're quiet. They stay. "Linda sent a letter," Frank said. Harold glanced at him. "You read it?" "No." "Gave it to Janet? She said it's an apology. Something about being scared of getting old, dying, never feeling young again." "You gonna write back?" Frank looked at the crocuses, blooming despite the chill. "No. Some things don't need answers." A truck drove by. Frank's pulse didn't quicken. It was just a truck. Not Derek's, not a threat. Just part of the morning. "You did good," Harold said. "Got through it without getting bitter. That's the hardest part. Doesn't feel like I did good. Feels like I just survived." Sometimes good is just that. Just surviving when everything tells you to quit. Frank looked at his hands. Still scarred, still rough, still capable of building. The 43 years weren't wasted. They taught him what he would no longer tolerate. Taught him that silence isn't the same as weakness. That protecting yourself isn't cruelty. It's dignity. He sipped his coffee. Black. Bitter. Good. Thinking of taking that commission. Old Cal Turner offered a custom table for his daughter's wedding. A big job. "You can handle it." "Yeah, but I've got the time now." Harold smiled. "Now you do." They sat as the morning warmed, degree by degree. Spring was taking hold, patient and relentless. Frank's phone vibrated. A text from Mary. "Made extra lemon bars for the supper. Hope to see you there." He looked at the message. Didn't reply right away, but didn't delete it either. "You know what's strange?" Frank said. "What?" "I thought losing everything would break me. The marriage, the money, the life I built. Thought I'd shatter." He paused. "I lost it all. But I still have the house. Got Amy back. Have you, showing up every morning with coffee." He paused again. I got myself back, the part I'd forgotten. Harold raised his mug. To surviving. Frank clinked his mug against it. To surviving. They finished their coffee as the birds claimed their right to the morning and the crocuses bloomed. And somewhere in town, life kept moving forward, ready or not. Frank stood, stretched. "Better get back to that chair." "Need any help?" "Nope, but stay for lunch if you want." "I'll stay." Frank walked back into the workshop, stopped in the doorway, looked back at the porch, the crocuses, the house he'd built with his own hands, still standing. All of it. He picked up the sandpaper and went back to work. The chair would be finished by Wednesday. The young couple would bring their baby home in May. The rocking chair would hold the mother, father, child, through night feedings, lullabies, and all the small moments that build a life. Frank would make it strong enough to last for generations, because it was what he did. He built things that lasted. That evening, Frank finished the rocking chair, ran his hand over the armrest one last time, feeling for any missed rough spots. Found none. He stood in the doorway between the workshop and the house, in the dusk, golden through the trees, one hand on the door jamb, the other holding an empty coffee mug, halfway between work done and rest earned, between what was and what would be. He thought about the word furniture, how it had almost killed him, how Linda had meant it as an insult, something useful but unnoticed, taking up space without mattering. But furniture has a purpose. It holds weight, bears years, becomes part of the bones of a house. The difference was, he wasn't the furniture. He was the carpenter, the one who decides what to build, what to discard, what to keep. Linda had chosen passion over partnership, her right, but not without a price. Derek had chosen greed and got justice. Frank had chosen dignity and kept himself. Not exciting, not dramatic, just his. He didn't know if he would love again, didn't need to know. He knew he would keep building. Chairs, tables, steps. Maybe his own small life, too. Not grand, but honest. The radio in the workshop was still on, an old country song about getting through hard times. Frank didn't change the station. Tomorrow he would deliver the rocking chair to the young couple. A new life was beginning, while his old one was healing. Not replaced. Healing. There was a difference. He looked back at the workshop. Tools hung neat, wood stacked, floor swept, everything in its place. Then looked forward, to the house, with its warm porch light. Harold would probably be waiting with coffee tomorrow. And for the first time in 43 years, Frank understood that he too was in his place, not moving back, not rushing forward, just standing in a spring evening, breathing, being alive in the moment between what was lost and what was possible. And that was enough.